Welcome to Ponchatoula Live, the show where we make it easy for you to connect with the people of Ponchatoula. I'm your host, Parker Layrisson, and today I've got a fantastic guest, somebody that I've been looking forward to for weeks to catching up with, because when we were in high school, this guy was one of my heroes. I was blessed to become good friends with him, even though he was a few years ahead of me. And anyway, watching him as a star basketball player was always a sensation. We all know it's that time of year, March Madness. Everybody in Ponchatoula saw our hometown hero, Alan Graves, drain what Sports Illustrated called an all-time NCAA dagger. And so basketball's in the air. And this guy's not only one of the great players of Ponchatoula high school history, but he's also a fantastic coach who's gone on to share his love of the game with many others. But more than anything, more than principal, teacher, he's just a great guy in the way that he's a great husband and father and all, much more. So with no further ado, I bring my old friend, Norm Picou Jr. Norm, welcome to the show. Why don't we kick things off with you just telling our listeners and our viewers a little bit about yourself?
All right. Of course, I'm 52 years old now, so it seems like it's been a long time. But I grew up in a family of educators. My dad was a coach. He coached high school, coached in college, and then he was a principal as well. And so I guess my first ball I ever had in my hand was a basketball, and it brought a lot of things into my life and helped pay for my school, and it's still involved in my life now, and I've used it to hopefully make a good impact on some kids along the way. But started out playing. I don't ever remember a time where I didn't have a ball in my hand, and then played at Ponchatoula.
Right.
Was great. Moved there my freshman year, and it was a great 3 years of playing there under Coach Grigas. And
Oh,
then
talk about legends, man. That's a man who's shaped lives, and Grigas is just an awesome guy. It was also heck of a player. I mean, he may still have some baseball records lingering up there at Southeastern. Great fella.
yeah,
What was it like playing for him, Norm? What was he like as a mentor and a teacher and a coach?
it was great. He took a very simplistic approach to the game. He cared about his players, and as a player, you knew he did. Um, that was a great 3 years playing for him. Um, and he was there not only, when I tore my knee my senior year, he made sure he stayed around, and he and I have stayed in contact ever since then. When I was coaching, I would talk to him probably once every couple of weeks. Uh, and then I still stay in touch with him here and there. I actually was fortunate. I hired Brent as an assistant coach at Southwood for his first job.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. Brent. I actually coached Brent when he was like a bitty ball age player, and of course, I knew zip about basketball. Unlike you, my career petered out on the bench at St. Joseph in the 8th grade. So I'm out there coaching as part of the Key Club program. As you might recall, they were short on
Yeah.
coaches, and whether we were good ball players or not, they put us out there and gave us a team. And I remember first practice, Coach Grigas shows up. Now, to me, he was my teacher, a fantastic history teacher. But I'm thinking, oh man, talk about pressure. I don't know what I'm doing. And here's this great coach. And one thing I admired about Coach Grigas was he stayed in his lane. He was there for me. If I asked him a question, he would help without any hesitation. But he didn't get over there and micromanage, and he didn't holler at me about playing time and whatnot, which I guess wasn't a problem. Brent could make shots coming out of the door of the gym practically. But anyway, I always admired the way he handled that situation, having such a terrible coach handling his kid. It was neat. Well, tell me, let's talk about the more influential coach in your life, that being your dad. When I met you, when I arrived at Ponchatoula High School 3 years after you, you're already the big man on campus, and draining threes from every corner of the gym. And I think at that time your dad was already coaching at Southeastern, very prominent in the greater community. And obviously to play for someone of his character, who not only succeeded on high school courts like you did, but also at the collegiate level. And as you mentioned, you can't really remember a time without a ball in your hand. What lessons did you learn from your dad on and off the court that kind of made you a better player, a better coach, and ultimately the man that you are?
He taught me to always work hard. I can remember, him being in the gym, or if I didn't go up to the gym to shoot, he'd make a sly comment about somebody else is probably shooting today. So he taught me work ethic, and
Right.
to always do your best no matter what you decide to do. And I'll never forget when I decided to go into coaching, his first words to me were, "You are not going into coaching to be a coach." He said, "You are hired to be a teacher, so you better be the best teacher you can be. And then you coach as a hobby." He said, "You're hired." And so, that's something that stuck with me, and I used to make sure that I always did the best job I could in a classroom, um,
Uh-huh.
which ended up helping me out as I became, moved up, and
Yeah.
instruction becomes more important. But that was something that he taught me, and then just knowledge of the game.
Right.
I can remember having him come to my games as a coach, and having him critique me after, what could we have done better? And have him scout my teams, because he knew the game, uh,
Yeah.
and still does. He don't go to as many games as he used to, but he still kind of hit some here and there.
Well, let's talk about something you alluded to earlier, and that is dealing with the adversity that sports can bring, and in particular, injury or catastrophic injury. You had a big blowout on your knee. You've got this, outstanding career going, setting all these records, scoring points, etc. And here, as I recall, your senior year, supposed to be your big year, kind of all that blows up in the form of a knee. So, how did that play out, and what lessons did you learn in the process?
Well, it was, I'll never forget. I haven't been back to Bugaloosa since then. Uh, but
I don't blame you, brother.
yeah,
Between
we were
that and the
playing at
snow and the bill,
Bugaloosa.
no reason to go back.
Yeah. And it was actually, you talk about the highs and lows, and it was the end of the first quarter, and I was probably having one of those nights where I couldn't miss. I had about 20 points in the first quarter, and it
Holy
was
cow!
just remember dribbling, and I jump stopped to throw a lob because I was lucky to play with a lot of talented players. And I think I threw a lob to either Marlon Wilson or Keno Hayes. And when I jump
And
stopped,
both of those guys could jump out the gym, man. Those are some
yeah,
players.
they definitely could jump. And that knee popped, and it changed a lot of things. I was being highly recruited, and then I went from being a highly recruited guy to then it was kind of, smaller D1 schools. So, your
Right.
ego takes a hit. And
Absolutely.
then I dealt with some issues from that knee where I ended up having 8 more surgeries, and, kept trying to play, kept hurting it. And, but the thing that I learned is that, God has a path for us all, and that sometimes we don't understand what happens. But I tell some people, I was really leaning to going to West Point back then. And
Wow, really?
if I don't tear my knee, I may go and may end up in a war and may end up not coming home. So I like to take and look at it as a positive, that
Yeah.
it put me down the path I needed to go on. So, when you're in high school, I was like, why is this happening? What's going on?
Of
This ain't
course.
fair. But as
Yeah.
I've gotten older, I don't think I would have met my wife if I don't hurt my knee,
Yeah.
because I go down a different path. And so I'm very fortunate with the life I've had. So I've learned to be very grateful because I've recovered from that injury, where a
Yeah.
lot of people have injuries they don't recover from.
Well, I admire that perspective. I'm sure, it takes a lot to work to get that kind of positive outlook. But the part of that you mentioned, I do want to talk about that path. Megan, meeting your wife, if you don't mind, share how that came about. I know you two are a wonderful couple and also kind of an education power couple, if you will. So, how did that all come to be? That's one of God's great blessings in your life. How did it play out?
Well, I was living in Shreveport, and I was fortunate enough. I was at Southwood High School, and our principal retired, and they hired a new principal named Jeff Roberts, who is one of my close friends and probably someone who I learned more about being a principal and turning the school around from than anybody. So Jeff came in at Southwood. He immediately made me his admin designee. I was athletic director, financial business manager, and we were in a situation where our school was an F school. We were having probably 100 fights every 2 weeks, and so he came in and cleaned house, and then we spent that summer interviewing. Well, one of the people that we interviewed was Megan. And so Megan started working at Southwood, and
Right.
we worked together for a couple years. And then it just so happened, we both were single, and then kind of
Yeah.
just met one day and started going out. So
It clicked, and here we
it
are all
clicked.
these years later.
Yeah.
That's
Because when
great.
we first went out, we both said, "Look, we're neither one of us looking for anything serious. We're just gonna go have some
Yeah.
fun." And then next thing you know, we've been together ever since.
That's
And she's
wonderful.
been great. So
That's a beautiful story. And we're gonna circle back to that turnaround at that school, because I know you didn't. It was not an F school when you left, and I know you learned a lot in that process. But before we do, let's take a move back. So we're talking about you coming out of PHS, hurting your knee. Your offer situations change in terms of what schools are looking at you. But before we exit the kind of Ponchatoula high era of your life, we've talked about Coach Kriegas. We've talked about your own dad. Who are some other influences in your life? This could be teachers, administrators, not necessarily just PHS faculty, but anyone from the Ponchatoula community that really made an impact on you during your high school years before you went into college.
I would probably say Miss Donald, our old biology teacher. Uh, I was not a science person, never have been, and I remember telling her, Miss Donald, I don't like science, but I got to make sure I get a B, or I'm not going to be able to play basketball. And so she took the extra time to work with me. Her, and then in the community, I'll never forget being at Southeastern and Dr. Pendarvis. Dr. Pendarvis was a great mentor while I was there. And then, there's a lady that everybody from Ponchatoula knows that I think the world of. I talk to her every time I see her, is Coach Allred. So she was great. Matter of fact, the first time she ever met Megan.
I love Miss Peggy. She was one of my first teachers in ninth grade. She kind of took me and little Will Richardson. We were two timid freshmen that were maybe 5 feet flat, and put us under her wing and kind of helped us out. Yeah, she's great. She and her husband, Mr. Bob, are both kind of impact educators, if you will.
Yeah, I remember first time she met Megan, we came down. I took Megan. We were going through all the antique shops, and she was looking in Coach Allred's shop, and she saw this fleur de lis that she was like, "Oh, this is really neat. Will you buy it for me?" And of course, Coach Allred, she said, "You're not buying this. I'm giving it to her." And so we went through that whole argument of, "No, I'm gonna pay," and she's like,
yeah.
she won. So because when she set her mind to it, you wasn't gonna change it. So
Yeah.
but yeah, she was great. And I tell you, my years at Ponchatoula had a lot to shape who I am. I made great friends. You and I were friends.
Right.
Philip Bankston and Mark Perrin. I'm
Great
still
guy.
friends with those guys to this day.
Yeah.
That's not normal. A lot of people say, "Oh, I don't talk to people from high school." We stayed close, and that closeness was part of the reason we decided to move home.
And that core group of friends you have is one where each of you know you can count on each other.
Yeah.
I remember, for example, sadly, when Mark's mother passed away a few years ago, I hadn't seen you in a while, but I saw you at the funeral, and it's like, of course, Norm's here. Like, there's just no doubt that even though you're living a million miles away and have your own life going, and I'm sure there were 14 different things that made it difficult to drive the entirety of the state of Louisiana, you're there. And those guys are there for you, and that's really neat what y'all have. It's one of the kind of bright lights of Ponchatoula is that each class has pockets like that. My little group of guys that I came up with, we still camp out behind one of our guys' mom's house and dad's house every year. Just you don't see that everywhere.
No.
So, Norm, as we're talking through your life story here, you come to Ponchatoula, you meet great friends like Philip Bankston and Mark Perrin, and then you fall under some wonderful educators like Coach Kriegas, Coach Allred, and you have a kind of storied career here with the big adversity of the knee injury. That changes your trajectory somewhat on the athletic front. Tell us, if you will, about the college experience and how life kind of changes from. I'm sure at the point we were talking about PHS, you were probably looking like our friend Alan Graves is, which is, I'm gonna play one day for in the pros,
Yeah.
and as all good young ball players do. But at some point during college, you realize probably I'm going to be a coach. I'm going to be a teacher. I'm not going to be an NBA superstar. I'm not the next Larry Bird or whatever. And if I'm wrong, correct me. But if I'm not, talk about that journey and tell us kind of how you got, through that next chapter of life.
Yeah, when I went to college, I started rehabbing. Doc Goodwin at Southeastern, bless his soul, he did a lot to get me back on track. And then, I toured a couple more times,
Yeah.
and it kind of got to the point where I never was the player that I was before the injury. And so the last time that I got hurt, I was actually playing at Barton College in Wilson, North Carolina. Uh, Matt Painter was the assistant coach who had recruited me up there. So, I like to say, hey, I played for the guy that's coaching at Purdue right now.
Yeah, that's
And
pretty cool. That's a pretty cool thing to be able to say.
yeah, and Dave Davis was the head coach, and he was a great guy. And I'll never forget when I finally heard it the last time. I said, "Look, I'm going home. I'm just going to go home and finish my last year of school." And he offered me the opportunity to stay and stay on scholarship and be a student assistant. But I knew the game. I knew the amount of money they had and the scholarships that they didn't have. So I decided to come on home and finish my last year at Southeastern. And at that point, I actually went into business. I got my degree in marketing and was going to go into business. And because my dad was kind of he didn't want me to be an educator. He's like, "Oh, you're too smart to do that. Go make some money."
Yeah.
So I was working for Norwest Financial as a manager.
Okay.
And was doing good and was liking it. And then I just could not get that urge to coach out of my system. And so I took the job at Frost School in Livingston Parish to coach.
Oh, I know Frost well. I used to play in their round robin tournament in the junior high age, and my wife worked out there. In fact, when we had our first child, I'll never forget the teacher sent her home from Frost. Brandy thought she was gonna give birth in about 3 weeks, and the teacher's like, "No, baby, you having this baby today. Get your butt back home." And she was right. So Frost has a special place in my heart. Yeah, that's neat. What was it like out there for you?
It was fun. It was fun. I was actually coached there. I worked under Bruce Chafin, who's now an assistant superintendent in Livingston.
Right.
Think the world of him. Learned a lot from him. It was interesting. I was teaching 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade social studies. Didn't have a classroom. I had a little cart, and I pushed my cart around to 6 different rooms during the day. And back then, if you didn't have your teaching certificate, you had to go back to school. So I was going to Southeastern in the afternoons, getting my alternative certification. And Livingston Parish is very, very serious about their paperwork. And I was going through a TAP back then. That was one of the programs you had to do if you were a new teacher. So I remember being at home going, "Man, what have I got myself into?"
Well, you and my dad need to sit down one day and compare notes, because long before he was sheriff, he has a very similar story, except it's set at Maurepas High School, and he was coaching the girls basketball team. But same thing, business degree, no education certificate, and all those extras. And the thing about Livingston that's different than Tangipahoa, we're a football parish. Not everywhere is good at football, but everywhere has got football basically, and it's kind of the kind of typical Louisiana culture center of the sports programs here. But in Livingston, there are a lot of schools that don't have football, and basketball and I think Frost is one of them, if I recall. And basketball is the headline sport there. And so I bet it was interesting coaching out that way.
Yeah, it was. And I actually, my first high school job was Maurepas. So,
oh, really? Come on.
Yeah.
And Maurepas had some great players. I just 2 nights ago, I saw Jesse Brown. I don't know if you coached Jesse and Rocky Brown. But Jesse's son played for my team that I coached 3 or 4 years ago. Okay. He's a heck of a little player. He's in the 4th grade now. And but he and his brother Rocky, who's really tall, those guys can bomb. They can play. But I want to bring up a quote here. You mentioned your dear friend Mark Perrin, my dear friend Mark Perrin. He comes on here to say, and Mark, by the way, before I read your quote, I want to say I'm loving the Yankees, picture there, opening day. I don't know how the season's going to go, but we feel good coming off of opening day with our 7-0 route and our ace looking like an ace. Maybe with another ace coming out soon. But Mark Perrin says he loves both of us, and thanks you for for our friendships.
Yeah.
Mark, the feeling's mutual. Norm, how does it make you feel to have a great guy like Mark Perrin come out in front of the whole world and basically tell you he loves you?
Yeah, it means the world to me. You know, Mark and I have stayed in touch. We've been there for each other through good times and bad. Uh, he and Philip Bangston probably know me more than anybody. And I would argue that they may even know me better than Megan at some point, but I doubt that now.
They
Uh,
definitely know some things Megan doesn't, I'm sure. You know, there's the
yeah,
secrethood of high school pals. But one thing I can say for you that we agree on is that Mark is just an incredible friend, a loyal friend, a trustworthy friend, and a guy who's always there for you. So, folks,
yeah,
if you're hearing any of those words and that sounds like the kind of guy you want to be in business with or no, I'm gonna give him a quick plug he didn't ask for. Mark Perrin, Berryland Motors,
yeah.
Ponchatoula, right there on Main Street, corner of Fifth and Pine. If you need some wheels and you want to get them from someone you can trust, that's your guy right there. So, if you're looking for a car, go see Mark. He might already have a full docket on friends. I don't know if he's added any new friends to the roster, but I know he'd be fine with customers. I also want to share we got another comment from Lynette Andrews, and she says that she's so happy to have you and Megan back home. Norm, Lynette, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Folks, as you can see, we have the ability to share your comments with Norm. So if you just want to say something nice, as Mark and Lynette have done, or you have a question for him or whatever, please feel free to comment here on Facebook, and I'll do my best to get them up in the show live. And I appreciate y'all doing that. We're here with Norman Picou. We're talking about his life and career in athletics, in education. We've learned how he met his wife. If it's not too soon, and correct me if you want to talk about something else because it's your show, not mine this week. But let's circle back to Red River because that turnaround, from what I understand, is really storybook. Like there needs to be a Disney movie about it. Because like you mentioned, when you got there, it's an F school. You mentioned your friend who took over as principal. If you don't mind, expand on that situation. Tell folks what y'all did, how it was when you found it, how it was when y'all left it, and what you learned about how y'all got it turned around the way you did.
Gotcha. Well, it was actually Southwood first,
Oh,
and
okay.
that's
I'm
where. Yeah,
sorry.
that's okay. So at Southwood, we took over. We were in F school. We were having a lot of fights. Um, Graduation rate was down in the 70 percentile, which is not where you want to be. And so Jeff came in. He told me he was going. He said, "Look, you're not going back in the classroom." He said, "I need you to be in charge of discipline." And he said, "You're going to run the school discipline." He said, "And if I'm not on campus, I want you to be the guy to go to." And in Caddo does things a little different. We had assistant principals of instruction, assistant principals of discipline, and the principal kind of oversaw everyone. And our first goal was to clean the school up. And so I can remember him, saying, "Hey, this is what my expectations are. If kids are not meeting it, I want you to follow the discipline process, and we got to clean the school up." So our first step, we actually removed about 350 kids out of the school our first year. We were having a lot of fights, a lot of drugs. Um, we got that cleaned up. And then the next phase was while we were doing that, we built a good staff. And then we took and we looked at our data of our students, and then we created some groups.
Norm, can I jump in with a quick question? How do you
Yeah.
build a good staff when you're at an F school? Like, how are y'all recruiting new talent when the grade on the wall is so bad?
Well, he put it out there. First thing he did was we met with the staff, met with the community. We tied in with business leaders and
Mhm.
basically shared our vision of the school, let them know what we were going to do. And then we made sure to get out and meet with businesses, meet with people, and then you use your current staff that bought in to help recruit people. We were fortunate enough that we were able to hire a lot of good teachers, and we had a very supportive administrative team from the district level
Mhm.
that basically said, "Hey, what do y'all need to get this done?" And then our school board member, and he passed away, but Larry Ramsey was a great guy. He was right there in the fight with us, and we brought the kids in and
What
we
I'm
laid
hearing
out.
is there's a lot of alignment there from the
Yes,
district level, the political level of school board, the business community, external factors, and then you guys, are kind of hand in hand there on the faculty,
we
all pushing in the same direction.
right, and the first thing we did that we wanted to do was change the culture, and so the easiest way to change the culture on a school campus is first you got to get involved with the community, and then your most visible groups, your extracurricular activities, your sports teams, your academic teams that travel to competitions, your dance team, your cheer team. We took and we said, okay, what do we have to do? We rebranded all of that, and we pushed that as a focus. And we let those kids know that we were going to hold them to a higher standard. They had certain things they had to meet. And we made sure that our teachers had everything they needed to do. And, Jeff said, he called us, our admin staff in, and it's something that I believe and have followed. He said, I do not want you in your office during the day. You are to be out and to be visible. Unless you're meeting with a parent about a serious situation or you are meeting with a kid, he said, I want you hitting classrooms. And that's what we did. We were just visible. We were out. The kids knew could pop in rooms at all the time. Our teachers knew that we were not popping in to get them. We were popping in just so the kids would see us, and we were supporting them. We built our biotech magnet program, and then we ended up being a high B, pushing an A.
That's awesome.
And we
From
turned
F to
around.
B plus, basically.
Yeah. We built up our athletic facilities.
Yeah.
Academic programs increased. We actually, and being in Shreveport, you have so many schools and kids have such a way to go to where they want to. We had a company come in and create a recruiting video that we would go to junior highs and elementaries and play and at community functions. And then we brought in community people. Jeff started something that is still going on today. We had a great band director by the name of Leonard Holden, and the Southwood Band, they could go out and compete on a field competition playing the field music, or they could turn around and they could be doing concert competitions. And so we started Concert in the Courtyard, where every Christmas we sold tables to local businesses and they played concert music for them. Our kids dressed in tuxedos and nice dresses, and all of our groups were involved. And it just became a hit. It showed that there was more to the school. And then we pushed the academic side, and our teachers, you're only as good as your teachers. And our teachers did a great job of working with our kids. And we just were able to turn it around, and it became a very good school. We actually grew to where we ended up. We were pushing 1,900 students, where we had fallen to about 1,100. And it was some great times. The 9 years there, I learned a lot. It was and it ended up helping me in my career because I've used that as I've gone on.
Yeah. I bet. No, it sounds kind of like coaching under Nick Saban or something. I mean, you're watching something be built. Saban at LSU, let's say, or early Alabama. Just kind of tearing away all the rot that needs to get rid of and rebuilding and helping the community see its potential had to be remarkable for the kids.
Yeah.
So how does the next chapter go? So how is that not a happily ever after at one school, one career? Where'd you go next, and how did
Caddo restructured their admin pay to a different level, and I was an admin designee, athletic director, financial business manager, and head basketball coach. And for me to move into administration there, I would have taken like a $15,000 pay cut.
Oh wow, so, yeah. And you're like, hey, I changed from a career in finance. I'm okay with some level of pay cut, but I can't go all the way to poverty. So yeah, that tracks. And Red River is well known for paying a lot of money compared to other neighboring jurisdictions. Is that right?
Yeah. So I ended up fortunate, and I got to work for another very good principal in J.C. Dickey at Red River High School, and he hired me. I was actually the assistant principal, and then I was also, we have an elementary school, middle school, and a high school, and I was in charge of the athletics on all of those campuses. And then we redid our parish-wide structure. We ended up saving the district about $100,000, but we were able to set a better pay for our coaches. And we were able to do a lot of things because we had very good community support. Our community passed a $30 million bond. We had turf football, turf baseball, turf softball. We also had great academic facility. We had a CNA lab. Our ProStart lab was probably better than most of the restaurants in Shreveport. And then we had a welding and carpentry shop that was unbelievable. And we had a very good, Allison Strong was our superintendent. She was very hands-on. I learned a lot from her, and the district was very, very supportive. They expected a lot of us, but in the meantime, they also gave us a lot to get things done. And so we got there, year 2 as an assistant principal, we became an A school. And then in 21-22, and in 22, JC got promoted right at the beginning of the school year to director of accountability, and I was asked to take over as principal. And the crazy thing is, I was asked to take over. I was the principal of Red River High School, and I was the principal of Red River Junior High at the same time.
Okay, so you went principal at two schools, one dorm. That's tough. Principal Picou had his hands full, right? But both hands.
I did. My teachers used to laugh and ask me, how many steps are you getting in a day? I said, I probably was getting about 20,000 steps a day. We had a cafeteria that we shared, but it was 2 separate schools, 2 different school codes. And so it was interesting. We were trying to build the junior high up. And then, of course, the high school, we were already in A, but where do we improve? And so we were very fortunate. I had a great staff. We had a lot of support. And once again, it was that tie-in of community, teachers, and support from the district. And I just followed the model that we did at Southwood. At Red River, though, it was fortunate because we weren't starting at ground zero. We had already kind of broke that A level. So then it was, once you reach the top, how do you stay there, or how do you push it to the next level?
And I've learned that in my law practice, that can be much harder than getting there. It's like,
well, I have a mentor. We were, first thing, we got very fortunate. We got a grant through the state for Freshman Academy. And with that grant, we actually brought in one of the companies that we had to use was Southern Regional Educational Board. And a gentleman by the name of Kyle Ferguson was our rep. So he came in and he worked with me kind of in a mentor capacity. And he reviewed some things that we had going on, and he would make recommendations. He was a principal in Alabama who had retired, and he had been there and done it all. So kind of picked his brain, because being a principal is about like coaching. You don't create anything new. You just steal from the guys that have done it and been successful.
Wait, but one other thing, let me ask you if this is correct, because I assume it's also like coaching in that everybody in the community thinks they can do your job, whether they ever played a game or not. Am I right about that?
Well, look, as a coach, you got 50% don't like your decisions, 50 do.
Yeah.
And a principal is about the same way. But when you make that decision as a principal, you've got students, you've got teachers, you've got district support, and so you're balancing a lot of different aspects. And we were fortunate enough that we maintained that A, and then in year 3, we actually saw growth. We hit a 98% graduation rate. Our ACT index went from a 73 to a 94. So we had a 21-point growth. And when we had decided to move home, I was glad, because my dad said, if you're going to leave a place, leave it better than you found it. Yeah. We set the record for the highest SPS in the history of the school. We were 103.5.
Holy cow. Norm, that's incredible, man.
And it was funny because
those are numbers that don't sound possible when you live in Tangi. So to hear that you've been there and done that, it's inspiring, man.
Well, it was funny because at my house, That's all my daughters used to say, can y'all please stop talking about school? That's all we hear. Because
Right.
Megan was in a process of, she was the assistant principal at the elementary school, and they built that school up from they were a D all the way to a B, and they increased their reading level. So we were having a lot of shop talk, and it was a fortunate thing. We were able to learn, we learned a lot there. I remember it was a hard decision, but during Christmas of that last year, Megan and I had come home, and we were visiting with my mom and them, and Megan looked at me on the ride back and she said, "You've been gone way too long. You need to get home. You need to be at home." And so we made the decision to move back home. Megan actually looked at me and said, "Hey, take a step back, take a break. You've been running two schools." She said, "Decide what you want to do after you may go back into coaching for a little bit."
Right.
So we did that, and she's actually an assistant principal at Laranja Middle now. And so we were fortunate to move home, and we knew where we were going to buy. We bought a house in Ponchatoula. I mean, because that's where we wanted to be. Ponchatoula has just been such an important part of my life.
Yeah, it's hard.
I wouldn't be who I am today if I wouldn't have been at Ponchatoula, just because of the teachers, the community. You remember, I mean, if we did something, everybody knew.
I feel the same way. Yeah.
It was, I mean, I can remember just talking to people, and you were always able, if something was going on, you knew. And, the school was such an important part of the community that
Absolutely.
it just made sense to come home.
Well, Nora, what you've described is like the reason I do this show. We don't have sponsors. I don't make any money off of this. I'm not a professional in any way at this. I'm not deluded into thinking I'm any good at it. But what I love is sharing the stories of the people in this community, because I know what makes Ponchatoula so special is the people, right? And what you mentioned in the high school, it is kind of this central filter through which almost all Ponchatoula people go. I mean, now there's a handful that go to these out of town private schools, and I've got nieces and nephews at St. Thomas, so I know not 100% go to Ponchatoula High, but overwhelmingly most people do. And I can tell you, I've done nearly 200 episodes of this show, and part of why I ask you so much about PHS and your teachers and your coaches is because I can see the legit, the numbers and the screens light up here when people are talking about the good old days, whether we're talking the Butler, Bodker, Allen, or Caminita era.
Yeah.
People love PHS, and people want to see it prosper. We take a lot of pride in that school. I want to share a comment here from one person who takes as much pride in it as you or I do, Kevin Rayford. He and his wife, Karen. Kevin says, Norm is a great guy. I can never thank him enough for what he's done for PHS baseball over the last few years. And we're so lucky to have you, Norm, and your wife, Megan, back in our community. And Kevin says, thanks. How's that make you feel? Because Kevin's not just a fellow PHS grad who was a heck of a ball player, but he's a big-time community leader. He's the parish assessor. So when he says something like that about what a great guy you are who supports PHS baseball, how does that settle with you, Norm?
It makes me feel good. I mean, Kevin, Kevin is a great guy, and he's probably one of the most well-respected leaders we have in the area.
Absolutely.
And I didn't really do a whole lot. I don't think I did a whole lot. They came up, we let them use our field. Their bus broke down. I made some phone calls through connections, was able to get them another bus. And we just made sure, because number one, it's Ponchatoula. So, when they came up, I wanted to make sure they had everything they needed. Number two, I used to always, if my teams traveled, I normally was with them, but if I couldn't be with them, I wanted to think that if they went somewhere, somebody else would step up and take care of my guys or girls if they were in a situation. So, being in education, that's just what you're supposed to do. You do what you can to help every kid, because they came up and they got in a bind, their bus broke down. I mean, it's playoffs, so they're already on edge. And but we were fortunate enough through some good connections through Jeff Roberts, who actually was the director of transportation in Caddo. My old football coach at Southwood is one of his supervisors. I was able to call them, and it was late, but they got on the ball and took care of it, because those guys, that's just how they are. They're just good guys. And but Kevin, thank you for the comment. And we're extremely excited to be back. My wife looked at me the other day and she said, of course, she's real excited. It's to be our first strawberry festival. But she
Oh
looked at me.
yeah, look.
She
I met
said,
my wife at the strawberry festival. Says, "Tell Megan it's magic, man. It's."
when
I
she
don't have to
looked at
tell
me the
you
other day,
that.
she goes, "We should have moved here sooner." And I said, "Well," so
Yeah.
she's enjoying it. She's found every restaurant possible in town. I think we rotate now which ones we eat at. So, but it's been good being back home and to hear a comment like that. Of course, it's just
Yeah.
it makes you know that you're doing something right.
Well, it's great to have you back because one of the sad parts of small town life is you see so many shooting stars go away. I'm the second of four boys, and everybody knows me and Bree because we stuck around. But our other brothers, who are incredibly talented, didn't, and it's just hard, to keep shooting stars in a town like this. So when someone like you, who has so much talent and character and so much more going for you, goes away, we don't think we'll get you back after 30 years or whatever it's been. And that's exciting. So let's talk. And I know I promised to respect your time. We're 41 minutes in, so I promise I'll let you go. But before I do, and I don't want to get in any trouble here because I know you've got a job that you love and are doing well, and nobody knows what the future holds. But if that spot at Ponchatoula High School or whatever come open, if Dr. Caminita were to retire, um, might that be something that would interest you? And what might you think would be the right way to energize that place and bring it to the best it can be? I hate to put you on the spot, and feel free to brush that one off if you don't want to. But
Well,
I know I hear a lot of chatter out there about, hey, the great news is Norm's back in town, and maybe one day he might be interested in doing what he did up North Louisiana here in Ponchatoula.
I would be lying if I didn't tell you that probably, we all probably have a dream job. Being the principal at Ponchatoula High is my dream job. Um, I would definitely, if Dr. Caminita decided to retire, if that job ever does come open, I'm definitely going to put my hat in for it. I actually have a plan that I've learned from Jeff and learned from Kyle Ferguson and from J.C. Dickey and all the leaders that I had at Red River that did such a good job helping me become the principal that I was. Is that I think the number one thing you got to do is you gotta build strong community ties. Ponchatoula is not the Ponchatoula that it was when we went there. It's grown. I mean, it's a big school. You have a lot of people that have moved in that are not. Ponchatoula used to be just Ponchatoula people, but now it's grown. So I think the opportunity to take what we had and mix it with the new people, and you build this new strong Ponchatoula High that could be the flagship of the parish and the state, starts with the community. You start with your groups that are out. They've got a great staff there. You know, it's a great school. Dr. Caminita's done a great job. So it's one of those things where you're not going in and having to fix a whole lot. You go in and you say, okay, I'm bringing in some outside ideas. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to focus on improving our graduation rate. We're going to look at what can we do to improve the facilities. Because we've gone there. There's some things that probably need to be improved on. That's going to take community buy-in. And I think the biggest thing that I could bring to the table is that I'm an alumni. I've been there. Ponchatoula High molded me. It's not really a job for me. It's more of a passion because that place has such a special place in my heart.
Yeah,
and I
sounds
want
like
the
a
kids,
calling, man. It's inspiring to hear you talk about it.
I want those kids at Ponchatoula, when they go through there, to have the same feeling that I have about it. That I'm telling you, I bleed green and white, and now they've added that light blue, which I really like. It looks good.
Well, hey man, as a Tulane grad, I'm loving it. Now I've got the same exact colors in both of my schools, and it's cool. But I agree with you, Norm. You mentioned the great staff and faculty they have there, and they do. I went about 3 or 4 weeks ago, probably 3 weeks ago, to teach a class on the law, and I was really impressed that they have a class that talks about the law of the community, and that would bring local lawyers in and do that. And the kids were dynamite. They asked great questions. It was, and as I'm being walked to class by my old buddy Mark Verbois, who I know is a really talented guy and presumably a fantastic teacher. I see Jennifer Drake. She was Jennifer House to us. Like you, a standout athlete who went on to be a standout educator. She's great. You see the hall litter with people. Brandy Daniels, Brandy Willie to us back in high school. All these fantastic people are there. And the facilities, candidly, probably weren't as impressive as they were when we were there in the 90s. It was a temporary building, kind of trailer type thing we were in. But with the right community buy-in, with the DSEG order hopefully behind us in the rear view, not constraining us, sky's the limit out there with the right leadership and plan. So thank you for sharing that with us. And I'd certainly love to see you get that opportunity. We're here at almost the 40, or I ran at the 45-minute mark. But before we close this thing and land this plane, so to speak, what have we not talked about that we should have? Is there anything on your heart, on your mind, just anything at all that you want to share with our viewers and our listeners?
Well, I'm day one of the tournament, I was really good. I had a perfect bracket. I did have some buddies call me though, and they said, "Man, what are you doing? Why did you have Santa Clara going to the grade 8, the final 8?" I said, "They have a Ponchatoula guy."
And boy, do they! He's a heck of a player.
He's probably the best basketball player to ever come through Ponchatoula.
And you say that there's been some great ones, and you are one of them, and you played with some great ones. And I think Larry Terry played some,
all great players, but I don't know of any of us that reached the level that Allen has. He is such a phenomenal young man. His parents did a great job.
He is. His father is one of my best friends, and I spent Tuesday with him, and it's so neat. We had a taco truck come to my office, in the yard behind our office is where we set up, and he's out there playing with his nephews, and at this point he's a really big deal. So people are coming up asking him to sign their Taco Tuesday shirts and taking photos, but he's also 6'9", But the thing about it is, you're right. I mean, he had such a fantastic season. I mean, he was, even though he didn't start, and that's his coach is old school. He likes those seniors, but he was top 5 player in the conference, even though he didn't start in the starting 5 of his team. But he was freshman of the year, 6th man of the year, and man, when it came to it, the conference, in the NCAA tournament, in both tournaments, because he was an all-conference player in the WCC, where they lost to Gonzaga in the final, game. But man, he brought it to Kentucky. I mean, doesn't get more blue blood than the University of Kentucky. 17 points, 7 rebounds. I think Allen scored the last 11 points for Santa Clara in regulation. And he drills that dagger 3 with 2.4 seconds left. Look, no less than Sports Illustrated called it an all-time March Madness dagger 3. And boy, talk about bad luck. They hit a circus shot from half court or whatever off the backboard. That's why it's March Madness. Here we are. But thanks for giving him his credit. That's a kid that I've watched grow up. And, the cool part about Allen Graves is, and I think you kind of mentioned this, he's an even better person than he is a ball player. And he's such a good ball player. He's probably heading to the NBA very soon. Again, back to Sports Illustrated for those who watch this stuff, because, there's a million projections about who'll go where, and nobody agrees on where Allen will go. But Sports Illustrated has him going 18th to the Spurs. So that's a pretty credible organization saying he'll be a first rounder. Danny Dunn knows better than anybody. He was there. Hey, coach. He said 17 points, 7 rebounds, 100% from the free throw line. I'm glad you mentioned that, because at the beginning of the season, free throws were Allen's weakness. He took every weakness he had, and he's turning some of them into strengths. And statistically, his year was just off the charts, man.
Yeah,
it was as good as anything.
Danny's a good guy. He's one of those good young coaches. I just have gotten to know him recently, and he does a great job connecting with kids. And that's really probably the thing that why I got back in education, and it's just making that impact. And that's why I hope that one day soon, maybe I can be at Ponchatoula and help, kids learn and have that same feeling and help shape future leaders of our community. But Parker, man, thank you for everything that you do. You've done a great job.
I appreciate you saying that. I appreciate you sharing your time with us.
And thank you. Who would have thought how far we've come since we were riding in that Bronco to concerts?
Wait, no, I think back. I was joking at that same taco truck. We were joking the other night about, Stormy Dean Joyner is our fire chief and kicking butt, doing well.
Yeah.
Bree Larson's our police chief. Wesley Daniels at mayor. You and I sitting where we are. Man, God's blessing is a wonderful thing, because there's some mysterious paths we take that none of us could foresee. But Norm, thank you. Please thank Megan for sharing you with us for this almost hour that you've been here. To our viewers like Danny that have stuck with us till the end, thank you for doing that. We'll be back next week, and y'all all have a wonderful week. Take care.
Thanks. Good night.